The champagne flutes clinked against crystal as Marcus surveyed his perfectly orchestrated celebration, a cruel smile playing at his lips. Among the sea of pastel balloons and designer gift bags, he spotted her, Emma, his ex-wife, walking through the door alone, just as he'd anticipated. He'd sent that invitation knowing it would twist the knife, knowing she'd spent years enduring fertility treatments that led nowhere, knowing she'd have to witness his triumphant new life with his pregnant wife, Victoria. What Marcus didn't know was that Emma had spent the last 6 months keeping the most extraordinary secret of her life, and in approximately 90 seconds, his smug satisfaction would shatter like the champagne, glass that would slip from his trembling fingers. 3 years had passed since their divorce, 3 years since Marcus had walked out with nothing but contempt and a lawyer's business card. "I need a woman who can give me a family," he'd said. As if Emma were a malfunctioning appliance he was returning to the store. Those words had carved themselves into her heart, a wound that bled every time she saw a mother pushing a stroller, every time a friend announced another pregnancy, every time she caught her reflection looking more hollow than the day before. Emma had spent 2 years in that darkness after the divorce, watching her life become a series of medical appointments and negative pregnancy tests with a man who grew colder with each passing month. The fertility specialist's office had become more familiar than her own living room. The injections, the procedures, the hope that flickered and died monthly, it had consumed everything, including her marriage and nearly her will to continue. But life has a peculiar way of unfolding when we finally stop trying to control it. 18 months ago, Emma had made a decision. She'd taken the money from selling the house she'd shared with Marcus, her half, earned through a decade of being a dedicated speech therapist at the children's hospital, and done something radical. She'd adopted, not through the traditional routes that would take years, but through an international program that specialized in placing children with special needs, children that others had overlooked. The agency had called her on a Tuesday. "We have a situation," the social worker had said, her voice heavy with urgency. 4 siblings, 3-year-old quadruplets. They were born prematurely, and one has cerebral palsy. Another has a cleft palate we're still treating, and they come as a set. We won't separate them. I know you applied for 1 child, but I thought of you immediately. You work with special needs children. You'd understand what they need. Emma had said yes before the social worker finished speaking. Some decisions don't require thought. They require recognition. She'd spent her entire career helping children find their voices. These 4 had been waiting for someone to hear them. The months that followed were chaos incarnate. Beautiful, exhausting, transformative chaos. Mason, Mia, Matthew, and Morgan. 4 3-year-olds with distinct personalities and identical eyes that had learned too early what abandonment looked like. Mason, the protector, always standing between his siblings and the world. Mia, the gentle soul who communicated more through touch than words. Matthew, whose cerebral palsy affected his legs but never his spirit. And Morgan, recovering from her 3rd surgery, who sang constantly as if music could rebuild what trauma had broken. Emma had kept it quiet, this new life she was building. Not from shame, but from a fierce protectiveness. Her children had already been through enough without becoming gossip fodder in her old social circle. She'd deleted her social media, changed her number for everyone except close family, and built a new world that revolved around therapy appointments, playground adventures, and bedtime stories read 4 times over because each child wanted their own individual tucking in. So when Marcus's invitation arrived, cream-colored cardstock with gold lettering, announcing a baby shower for him and his wife, Victoria, Emma had stared at it for a long moment. Her mother had urged her to throw it away. Her best friend had suggested setting it on fire. But Emma had seen something else in that invitation, an opportunity. Not for revenge, she'd moved so far beyond. Marcus, that revenge felt like a language she no longer spoke, but an opportunity to finally close a chapter, to face the man who'd made her feel worthless and see him clearly for what he was, someone whose opinion no longer held any power over her life. "I'm going," she'd told her mother, who was babysitting that Saturday afternoon. "Alone?" her mother had asked, eyebrows raised. Emma had smiled. "Actually, no." Now, standing in the doorway of Marcus's ostentatious country club venue, Emma felt a flutter of nerves. not for herself, but for her children. Behind her, being guided through the door by her sister Rachel and brother-in-law Tom, came her magnificent four. They were dressed in coordinated outfits, not matching, because she'd learned that forcing conformity on distinct individuals was a losing battle, but complimentary. Mason in his bow tie looking serious, Mia in her favorite purple dress with flowers, Matthew in his wheelchair, decorated with stickers he'd chosen himself, Morgan holding Emma's hand, humming softly. The room's chatter died like someone had flipped a switch. Marcus turned, and Emma watched his face cycle through confusion, recognition, and dawning horror. Victoria, 8 months pregnant and radiant, looked merely puzzled. But Marcus understood immediately what he was seeing. "Emma," he managed, his voice strangled. You have children." Emma walked further into the room, her squad following like a determined little army. "Marcus, Victoria, thank you for the invitation. These are my children." Victoria stepped forward, her face softening in a way that surprised Emma. "They're beautiful," she said, and there was genuine warmth there. "How old are they?" 4 next month," Emma replied, watching Marcus's face pale as he did the math. The timeline wasn't far removed from their divorce. "I adopted them as a set about 18 months ago." "Adopted," Marcus repeated, and something ugly flickered in his eyes. "Well, that's not really the same as—" "Marcus!" Victoria cut him off sharply, her hand on his arm, a clear warning. She turned to Emma with an apologetic smile. "I'm so happy you came, and that you brought your children. There's a kids' area set up in the back garden. Would they like to play?" As Rachel and Tom guided the quadruplets toward the garden, with several guests already gravitating toward them with genuine interest, Emma found herself alone with Marcus for a brief moment. Victoria had been pulled away by her mother to greet new arrivals. "Why did you come?" Marcus hissed, his facade of civility cracking. "To show off? To prove some point?" Emma looked at him, really looked at him, and felt nothing but pity. Here was a man who measured worth in biological connections and social status, who had thrown away something real in pursuit of some imagined perfection. "I came because you invited me," she said simply, "and because I wanted to show you that you were wrong. You told me I couldn't give you a family, but the truth is, Marcus, you couldn't give me one. Family isn't about biology or convenience. It's about showing up day after day for people who need you. It's about loving someone not despite their challenges, but because of their whole, complete selves." She glanced toward the garden, where she could see Mia showing another child her flower dress, where Mason stood protectively near Matthew's wheelchair, where Morgan's song drifted through the open doors. "I have more family than I ever dreamed possible," Emma continued. "4 extraordinary children who teach me every day what resilience looks like, who've made me stronger, braver, more patient, and more grateful than I ever was. You didn't make me childless, Marcus. You just made yourself absent from the most beautiful thing that's ever happened to me." Marcus opened his mouth, but no words came. What could he say? His cruelty had been designed to diminish her, but she stood before him radiating a contentment he'd never seen in their years together. Victoria returned, reading the tension immediately. She surprised Emma by taking her hand. "Can I talk to you for a minute? Privately?" They stepped onto a quiet terrace, away from the party noise. Victoria took a deep breath. "I need to apologize. I didn't know Marcus had invited you to— Well, I suspect I know why he did it. I've learned some things about my husband in recent months." Her hand rested protectively on her belly. "He told me you couldn't have children. He made it sound like some failing on your part. He never mentioned that you'd gone through fertility treatments together, that it was a shared struggle." Emma felt a familiar ache. "It's all right." "It's not," Victoria interrupted. "And I'm realizing it's not all right with me either. Watching how he reacted just now when he saw your children, the way he said adopted like it was somehow less than— I'm starting to see a side of him that scares me." Tears welled in her eyes. "I'm about to have his baby, and I'm wondering if he'll only love our child if they're perfect, if they meet his standards." Emma took Victoria's hands. "Can I tell you something? Mason was terrified of men when I first brought him home. He'd flinch at loud voices. Matthew was told he'd probably never walk. And we've spent a year in physical therapy proving those doctors wrong. Morgan has had 3 surgeries and faces 2 more. Mia barely spoke for the first 6 months. They came to me broken, And every single day, they teach me that broken things can heal if you love them enough. She squeezed Victoria's hands gently. Your baby will be exactly who they're meant to be. And if Marcus can't see the blessing in that, regardless of who that person is, then that's his failing, not yours. And certainly not your child's. You deserve better. Your baby deserves better. Victoria wiped her eyes, nodding. Thank you. I needed to hear that. She paused. Would you... I know this is strange, but would you be willing to stay in touch? I think I might need a friend who understands. Emma smiled. I think I'd like that. The party continued, but it had shifted. Guests who'd come to witness Marcus's domestic triumph found themselves drawn instead to the garden, where 4 resilient children played with the unself-conscious joy of kids, who'd learned that each day was a gift. Multiple people asked Emma for her card, therapists wanting to connect, parents of special needs, children seeking solidarity, and adoption advocates inspired by her story. Marcus disappeared into a study somewhere, his carefully planned humiliation backfiring spectacularly. As the afternoon wound down, Emma gathered her tired children. Matthew had fallen asleep in his wheelchair. Morgan was humming a lullaby to Mia, who was fighting to keep her eyes open. Only Mason remained alert, his little hand in Emma's. Home, Mama? He asked, and her heart swelled as it did every time one of them called her that. Yes, baby, home. As they left, Victoria caught up with them at the door. Emma, thank you for coming. Truly. She leaned down to the children. You 4 are very lucky to have her. Mason, ever protective, ever perceptive, looked up at Victoria with serious eyes. She's lucky to have us, too. Victoria laughed, genuine joy breaking through. You're absolutely right. Driving home, children secured in their car seats. Emma caught sight of herself in the rearview mirror. The woman looking back bore little resemblance to the broken person who'd signed divorce papers 3 years ago. That woman had measured her worth by medical charts and her ex-husband's disappointment. This woman knew her worth was measured in goodnight kisses and breakthrough moments, in therapy victories and the simple miracle of 4 hearts, beating in sync with her own. Marcus had invited her to witness his triumph, to rub her face in what she'd lost. What he'd actually done was give her an opportunity to realize how completely she'd won, not over him. That competition had ceased to matter, but over the lie that she was somehow incomplete, that her worth depended on someone else's validation. Her phone buzzed at a red light. A text from Victoria. Marcus and I are going to couples counseling. Thank you for the wake-up call. Those kids are lucky. So am I to have met you today? Emma smiled and tucked the phone away. Behind her, 4 soft snores filled the car. Her family. Chosen, fought for, healed, and healing together. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. Sometimes it's simply living so fully, loving so completely, that the person who tried to break you becomes irrelevant to your joy. Emma had walked into that party expecting to face her past. Instead, she'd introduced the world to her future. And her future was riding in the back seat, dreaming whatever dreams 4-year-olds dream, safe in the knowledge that they were exactly where they belonged.